Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Rhythms of the Culture. I'm your host, Raymond Lawrence. On this program, we have a very special guest, Prosper Paris. He's the Cultural Officer with the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs. So we're going to take a short break and come back to talk to Prosper Paris. Back in a moment. The first edition of Rhythms of the Culture. In this very new television program, we'll be highlighting various expressions and aspects of Dominica's culture. Tassia, let's start off with you giving us a bit of your background for persons who don't really know you like that well. Where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school. So, Ophelia, you've performed in just so many places all over. What are some of the performances that stand out in your mind as probably the more memorable?
Now, Owen, you traveled with the People's Action Theatre through the Caribbean. You mentioned a couple of island and Caribbean countries that you traveled to.
Welcome back to Rhythms of the Culture. Our guest on this program, Prosper Paris of the Kalinago Territory. Prosper, welcome to Rhythms of the Culture. Mabrika. Prosper, you are now officially Cultural Officer with the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs. Tell us about your present responsibilities in that position.
Well, I've been doing a lot of work in the cultural field long before I was employed as a cultural officer. Basically, I'm carrying the work, basically being paid for the work I've been doing for a number of years of my life this day. So it's an official capacity now. I am looking at the training of different groups, workshops. I'm the coordinator of events, special events, Kalinago Territory, meaning organization of carnival groups and the whole activity of carnival. I do the World Indigenous Day, that is the 9th of August. Programs to do that. Then I coordinate the whole activity of Kalinago Week, which I'm the events coordinator. So it's training, and I also work with the schools to ensure that they have some element of culture in the schools. They engage me very much during independent time, not only teaching, but also singing my own songs and telling them the conte, and myths and legend, which I do. Also spearheading the language program, which we're trying to bring back the Kalinago language, at least some aspect of it. And one way of doing that is by trying to get people to adopt our names for the Kalinago language. And we're on the third year going there. My name is Nikutubulu, which means backbone. And a number of us have adopted Kalinago names already. So this is going on slowly, but I'm very excited, very well. People are beginning to accept it.
Prosper, you are certainly multi-skilled, multi-talented, very much involved in so many aspects and facets of the Kalinago culture and heritage. You just mentioned too, language that you have been working on. I know you've done a lot of work in cuisine as well and herbal medicine as well. Let's look at cuisine and your interest too in that area and what has been done through your office in terms of and through your work in the territory with the Kalinago cuisine.
The work of the cuisine started long before I was cultural officer, as I mentioned. It was under the umbrella of the Carifuna Cultural Group. In 2010, we produced a booklet on the Kalinago cooking. And that we did research into the way of making the cassava, document to the way of making cassava, actually about some 12, 15 different dishes, which we did a workshop on with the aid from the Robinson Trust. We were able to launch a workshop. We trained about 23 people into that workshop. And then we document everything, all the process that was going on, we documented. And then at the end, we came out not only with recipes and people learn to cook, but we had a handbook. So people go home with one book, and this handbook are up in the bookstores. You can find them as J's with Church. And at the KBA, you can find this Kalinago cooking book. So what we were trying to do is to combat the high level of what they call different ingredients which you'll buy from the supermarket, the Ohio and the Saison and all these things which are imported, and use the local green vegetable and herbs that our ancestors used to use before.
Wow.
We also use that as a method of healthy living to combat non-communicable diseases such as diabetic and high blood pressure. When you eat too much of this stuff, you know what happens to you. So in a way that we promote healthy living habits through eating. And that was the goal, one of the goals for the booklet, and also to preserve our heritage by having this printed. Because the younger generation now are very quick, and not only young generation, things are going very fast now. It's computer, it's books and reading and everything else. And sometimes you don't have the time to really spend too much time with granny, even though if mother, you know, people spend less time with family now, people have to go out. And so it will have something documented. So when you take a full stop in life and say, boy, what have I forgotten? Where can I get this information? Then at least you can come back and read something, and this is the way it is done.
Yes. And one of the other areas I know you have a particular interest in, quite apart from all the other areas like dance, drama, singing, and so, is herbal medicine. And I know, of course, the Kalinago people have a wealth of knowledge of traditional herbal use, I would say, in medicine and other things. What has been your involvement in that area?
Well, the herbal medicine thing is something that the Kalinago people, especially the elders, hold very high value in their life. The knowledge which they have gathered for many, many years, and then they hold that in a special, not in books, but in their heads, and then they hand it down to generation to generation. And I have observed that it is not everybody that holds on to it, but it is a special gift that is given from our parent, our grannies, to certain people in the family. I observed that somebody may have 6 people in the family, and maybe only one person that really pick up a passion for it. It's just a thing you're having. I was fortunate to do in the 90s what they call oral history program in the Kalinago territory, where I was able to speak to a number of our elders. And as part of that, not only history, but the herbal medicine, the use of herbs in the territory was very, very, very much a top priority, and something that was losing because of you get now the pharmaceutical products which you have. You go to doctor more often, so it tends to tell you, well, this is not good for you and whatever is good for you. So people tend to, the younger generation seems to go more for the easy fix, the quick fix. But we always use herbal medicine. And so what we did, in 1993, I worked for a short time with the New York Cancer Institute. And during that time, not only teaching, well, they had a special goal to look for plans for the possible cure for cancer. But my goal was to work alongside with him, but at the same time, document all the remaining herbal medicine that were presently at use at the present time, and one that was documented, say, in the 1950s, earlier than that, by this gentleman, this scholar called Douglas Taylor. So at the time it was almost 100 and almost 200 different variety of herbs, and we only could gather around 89 of them, and from that you get 30 of them that was in direct use. People knew how to use them, and not only that, we would locate them. What was the best suitable place for planting them, whether they were seasonal, and what they would use for in a fusion by themselves, you know. So we were able to have this information gathered. And then later down, I also had the opportunity to work with youth with a program sponsored by UNESCO that also deal with herbs, and to establish a herbal garden at the site of the KBA that would enhance not only the interest of the visitors, but also as a means of preserving our knowledge and the use of herbs.
So we're talking to Prosper Paris, and when we come back, we'll look at his involvement, especially in the performing arts, which is another area that he loves quite a lot. We're taking a short break and come back to continue our conversation. The first edition of Rhythms of the Culture. In this very new television program, we'll be highlighting various expressions and aspects of Dominica's culture. Tasia, let's start off with you giving us a bit of your background for persons who don't really know you like that well. Where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school. So Ophelia, you've performed in just so many places all over. What are some of the performances that stand out in your mind as probably the more memorable?
Now, Alwyn, you traveled with the People's Action Theatre through the Caribbean. You mentioned a couple of island and Caribbean countries that you traveled to.
The first edition of Rhythms of the Culture. In this very new television program, we'll be highlighting various expressions and aspects of Dominica's culture. Tasia, let's start off with you giving us a bit of your background for persons who don't really know you like that well. Where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to school. So Ophelia, you've performed in just so many places all over. What are some of the performances that stand out in your mind as probably the more memorable?
Now, Alwyn, you traveled with the People's Action Theatre through the Caribbean. You mentioned a couple of island and Caribbean countries that you traveled to.
Welcome back to Rhythms of the Culture. We're talking to Prosper Paris, who's a cultural officer with the Ministry of Kalinago Affairs. Prosper, you're very involved in maybe every aspect of life, especially in the Kalinago territory. But one of the other areas that you've been involved in is the performing arts, especially music, dance, drumming, and especially with the Carifuna Cultural Group, which I think you were there from the inception. But tell us how, if we can go back a bit, how you became involved with the Carifuna Cultural Group.
First, I was a member of a group in my village called the Chien Zombie. It's a very funny name, but that was where I was. And this group looked about the folk culture, Dominica natural folk culture of Mazouk, and we went through a little bit of drama. And then by 1983, when the founder of Carifuna Cultural Group, Dr. Warwick Sanford, was just phasing out to studies, then he was looking for somebody to really replace for the leadership, or looking for somebody that would be potentially leadership during that time. So I went there and be a member of Carifuna Cultural Group. And within a year and a half, I was elected president. And I've served in twice. We had two other presidents, and then I've been the longest serving president for a long time, and still the president of the Carifuna Cultural Group.
You're still the president?
Still the president.
Yeah.
We did a number of strive. We represent Dominica in Carifesta, North America, all through the region. We were able to do a lot of work with the tourism industry when we had the National Development Corporation, and we were highlighting the World Creole Music Festival. We had a number of trips in Martinique, in the USA, in France, to really promote the World Creole Music Festival. At that time, I think the cultural groups were more they were using a little bit more. We had a very important part. We still have, but we were highlighted a little bit more to showcase not Dominica as a tourism destination and the rich culture and heritage we have here that people need to come and see. And we played a very vital role in that. And then we slowed down a little bit. We went into other activities, many other activities. We were able to get the Golden Drum Award during our course of our group, the OE Blanc Award. And then we had a split up between the group. The Caribbean Cultural Group was born out of Carifuna. We continued to do that. We did a recording in 2010, which is only CD recording of Carifuna song. I have been a songwriter and director for the group all this life. I still write song. And we recorded, and one of them was also document the song in our language. So we have 6 songs that are recorded in Kalinago language. The Mabrika You Hear Every Day, Akina Gona, and all these beautiful songs we did. So, and then we had a lot of follow-up that time. But during the course of the 20th century, you find that more distraction came within cultural work itself. Not only you had TV coming, you had cell phones, and you had all these other things. Sometimes I call it a distraction because now you find you have your world is in your fingers. You know, everything else, people are bending down their head and they don't hear the sound of
what's going on around
them. People just down their fingers, so when you call them, they're all frightened and say whatever. So that is one of the biggest challenges we have, is how we're going to get people out of that little square world they have and to look at the bigger picture. So we were able to do the cooking book in 2010, and then we were also very supportive of education within our group. Supportive. We were able to perform for the tourism that was coming very young in 1997, 2000. We were able to employ most of our group members. We had about a time when we even loaned to our membership that wanted to start into farming and other things. So we had the capacity to do that. We still have a little bit of that, but not as we used to be, because we no longer do on a regular basis performance, because most of our members now are employed. There's about only 2 people that is not employed fully, but most of our members went into teaching and other profession. Sylvanie Burton-Grimm is the permanent secretary in foreign. You have Garnet Joseph, who went Kalinago chief, and other people who take very, very permanent job in Dominica. And they are people that are very rooted, I must say. I mean, people that have awareness that they're Kalinagos, they did not bow down. They move up and still proud of who they are.
Now, in addition to the Carifuna Cultural Group, and as cultural officer now, I'm sure you're working with a number of other Kalinago cultural groups as well. Tell us about some of the other cultural groups which exist now in the territory.
Basically, there were 3 cultural groups. The Kalinago Dancers was formed again a little break away from the Caribbean Cultural Group. There was not really a cultural group, it was a thing more for performing for the visitors visiting Barona Ote. And they had get some contacts and they start moving up too. And then, but again, you have the challenge. If you stay in the community and you don't get employed there, and the culture itself, while you enjoy it, doesn't really pay you because you have families and there's responsibilities. So that poses a big challenge for you. So people have to migrate, they have to move out. So this group, those functioning groups, I must say, that are now doing a lot of things, if they would get employment elsewhere, that would be a big challenge too.
As well.
Keep it up.
Is there a lot of migration from the territory?
Well, within the territory, but other engaging into other forms of activity, you know, just really think, well, it's a better way of living and you're not there available at the time. So it's a big challenge to really keep people doing something they like, but if it doesn't pay you, you know, and there are some people that you're passionate like myself, I mean, to be involved and to know so many things, meeting so many people and to do that, the pay is one aspect of it, but I feel good doing it. If I don't do it, I just feel as miserable as I do, because I just feel I should be there doing it. If an activity happens and not there, and I see it go bad, I just turn my back and go, oh my God, I should have been there from the beginning, happen, and I don't have to blame anybody but myself. So until I have an input in it, I shut my mouth, I don't say anything. So that's why I took the responsibility to be events coordinator. So whenever activity happen, I'm on top of the ball and to ensure, and not only to myself, but to guide other young people. Because I start being involved in community service about 12 years as a Boy Scout and move on, and I've never left it. Some youth challenges how engaged they are into community activities, and that involves culture and other things. So if you're losing or you're empty, you know, you're moving, you have maybe a material things, but you're empty inside because nothing fills you with that aspiration and that wealth and that level of what you call how moral, you know, how you feel yourself as a person that makes you feel good about what you're doing compared to what you're getting.
Yeah. Now, with regards to the Kalinago Barana Ote that you mentioned earlier, which translates to mean village by the sea, it was created to kind of help with the tourism industry. Would you say that in fact it has helped to strengthen the tourist industry within the territory itself?
Well, it has to a level. It's just that I was there when the whole idea was conceptualized, well, from the building itself, what is supposed to happen. And I must say that we're lacking into giving people I'm not getting the support, I think, to give it the true essence of what we really wanted to put up there, what we really to go. You have things like you're pointing on and you're saying, this is that. But we wanted to have what we call a living village, actually living village, where you can see somebody doing practically the elements of it, but not what we had previously envisaged that would happen. So while it created that thing, we still are far from the real thing that we really wanted to do there, and what the expectation of a visitor when you come to that place, what they expect.
But you are hoping that maybe at some point it could reach that sort of objective.
Yeah, it will reach. I didn't reach that point, or people adapt to what is there.
Yeah. Now, another whole area of culture and heritage in the territory is your arts and crafts traditions, which you're so very well known for, not just in Dominica, I would say all over the world. That tradition of art and craft, a very thriving industry. Would you still say that it has a very important role within the development of the territory?
Well, presently, it's maybe the important role because many people rely on that for livelihood. Many people rely on that in livelihood, especially with the tourism industry. We will buy a little bit more. But even though with the downfall of, not downfall, but the kind of, the way people spend money now, people spend less money. The visitors spend less money than they used to be doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago when the tourism started. But people still rely on that. We still go to regional trade shows to promote, because it is one of the aces Dominica has. We call it 100% made, you know, local souvenir. When you buy something in Kalinago, you know, make sure you're buying something 100%. It is not made somewhere else. And many, as I said, many young people has engaged themselves over the years into keeping that aspect of weaving, but also there are some aspect of variety of basket that we're also losing. That the elders that used to do, the old Paya Kwaib, about 4 or 5 different variety of art which they did with the Lauma is not going slowly because they don't do it anymore. It is not being used so much, so it doesn't really hit the market. If you have to supply the tourism people, you have to make smaller things which you can carry it on. So you're prone to do things what is being purchased.
Now, with your responsibility as a cultural officer, of course, in the territory, when you look at the territory as a whole, in terms of cultural development, maybe what, and I know you've mentioned a couple of them, but maybe what other improvements would you like to see for the territory?
Well, the improvement I would like to see is mostly a school-based curriculum that involves culture inside it. I know they have it a little bit in the Ministry of Education, but it's very small. It does it because you have to do it, and they do it more of independent. The others make seasonal or when requested. For example, when we do Kalinago Week, we go to the school, we tell them give them a program, and then whether reluctantly or not, but they will participate. I know some schools are very happy to do those programs, but it's not a thing where you look up to that. But independent is quite inside the educational system, so people want to get dressed. I don't have no problem with that, but it's just that I would like to see a program in the school. I tried it already with those, and that is one of my shortfall, but also challenge because I'm a cultural officer. I don't have a budget. I don't have the budget. The Ministry of Culinary Affairs don't have a budget for culture or anything. So you find that if I do a project, then I have to go back to the Ministry of Culture and ask them whether I can get some help from that, write to private sector. If they don't respond to that, then you know your project doesn't go through. Whereas if you have a budget limit, even whether limited or not, but you have something to start off. And one of the things I wanted to do in the school is to have every year what they call a creative art festival within the inter-school creative art festival in the territory, where you would do your cuisine, where you would do your basketry, your carving, and everything else that is Kalinago. Your not only that, but your only dancing, singing. Some years ago, Carifuna did what they call an inter-school dance festival, dance competition to do traditional indigenous dance, and that went very, very well. We had the money, we sponsor ourselves, we could give trophies to the schools, and they do very much. But even that, now, when people do something, they want reward. You know, what we're getting at the end of it is big money. You can't even look at plaque anymore. People want to hear the prize giving is very exciting, so they go for it because we have become more competitive now. People want this competition and they want result, they want reward at the end of it. It's not like most of the time, long ago we used to do it for fun and you're glad you win, but right now something
tangible, I suppose, yes. Okay, so we're talking to Prosper Paris, and we're taking a short break and come back to conclude our Rhythms of the Culture. Back in a moment. So welcome back to Rhythms of the Culture. So Prosper, in concluding, what would you want to say to Kalinago people, the people of Dominica, about the Kalinago heritage and culture?
I just want to pause a moment and tell them that we are unique people, and if we lose what we have, just saying if you're a bird and you lose your feathers, you're no longer a bird. You're something else, maybe something else. So we have to keep our cultural heritage. I know some of it out there, and most of the time we take it for granted that it is there, and we lose it, and they say culture is another thing that is have to be played by somebody else. It is all of us. Because some people, when they talk about culture, they look at Carivon and Carina, they look at the other groups, that is culture. That is only part of it. Every day there is something cultural happening in your life, and you have to recognize how wonderful it is, how valuable it is for we as Kalinago people, and that we should encourage and support cultural activities whenever it happens around us, in our schools, in the community, that we should dare to even not encourage people who are doing it. And of course, we also would like the younger people to be more involved in the cultural activities
as well. Well, thank you very much, Prosper Paris, for joining me on Rhythms of the Culture. And I hope you enjoyed the program. To our viewers, we're inviting you to join us next time for another edition of Rhythms of the Culture. I'm your host, Raymond Lawrence, saying thank you for watching.